Hey there, it's Betsy from Story Drawing Skills, and I have this goal, this crazy goal, to create a 100-panel webcomic from scratch to finished in 6 months. This particular episode is going to be me talking about how I discovered that doing something is better than nothing. So sometimes you just gotta wing it. In the visual part of this video, you're going to be seeing a time-lapse of me drawing page 2 with panels 2 and 3, panels 2 and 3 on page 2, while I talk about a little, well, not a little, is actually a major problem that I had and how I overcame it by just deciding to do something. So, review, catch-up, summary of what's happened so far. I've been making this comic. I started out with my story, with my plot points, and then I designed my characters, and somewhere along the way the characters' personalities changed, and what they were doing in the story plot didn't make sense for their character. It's like real shy characters were suddenly taking the lead, and, you know, the leading characters were being shy, and it was just really weird. So, like, what was it, 9 or 10 weeks into this project, I suddenly had no script again. So I had no story whatsoever. Had to start from scratch. And even though I know these characters a little bit better, I don't know them well enough that I can just, like, put them in a situation and see what they'll do. And that's mostly from just time constraints. Like, normally if I had all the time in the world, then sure, I'd love to do it that way, but I don't have all the time in the world, so I have to sometimes compromise and, you know, make decisions based on getting this done rather than getting it perfect. So when it came time to start filming for this next page, I actually started out with story beats because I'm like, well, I have no idea what they're supposed to do in these next panels, so I have to finish my script. Like, I have to rewrite my script completely and get that thing done, because that's how you do it. You write a script and then you draw your comic off of that script. And I sat down for maybe 2.5 hours straight, and absolutely nothing came out. I did all kinds of different things, of either trying to get to know my characters better by using the Myers-Briggs personality test. I tried doing different scenarios of what could happen. I tried just thing after thing after thing, and nothing was happening. So I decided to just look back at my first page and think, okay, what happens next? Because obviously they are getting attacked by these little rock spiders. Clarice is really swarmed, like she's on the ground, and she really needs somebody to help her get out, because she's not the kind to just suddenly do like Hulk strength. And so I decided, like, somebody's gonna have to kick these spiders off. But then I thought, well, kicking a rock is painful, and Socorro's kind of far away from Clarice, so I think it's going to have to be Kess. And that kind of started the ball rolling and getting me going again, because I went, okay, so if she has to kick it off, then I'm going to need a kicking pose. And at first I was looking up, like, martial arts kicking poses, but obviously that's usually for a human, like a tall human, like you're kicking them in the head or the chest or whatever it is. And since these were so low to the ground, I instead had to look up, like, kicking for soccer or kicking for football, or, you know, other sports that are kicking something on the ground. And I found that image of this guy in the suit. I don't know why he's in a suit, but he is, kicking the soccer ball, and I thought, oh yeah, she could, you know, come in real low and then, like, sweep kick him off of Clarice. But she has this rabbit anatomy, like, magically overlaid over her human anatomy. And I was having a lot of trouble figuring out, like, how am I going to put this rabbit leg over her leg that is completely straight? I don't think a rabbit leg can do that, but I'm not sure. So I tried to do a little research, but eventually I kind of just, again, came to the conclusion, like, is getting this rabbit leg anatomically correct really that important for the story? And I kind of came to the conclusion that no, it's not. Just wing it. So what I did instead was I took the rabbit magic kind of down off of her legs and just put it on her feet. And that way I don't have to try to figure out how the rabbit leg joints will overlay her human joints, and it's okay, and I think it's going to be alright. Like, everybody can see that she's still got her rabbit magic on because she's got the ears and the big feet, and I avoided the headache of figuring out the anatomy, so I think that was okay. And then for this panel above, I also knew that Socorro needed to speak, because in the first page, in the first panel, Kes speaks and Clary speak. And if Socorro didn't, I felt like she was going to be judged as a minor character, because, you know, she's not talking, so she must obviously have nothing to say or must not be in a leading role, that kind of thing. So I knew she would have to say something next, even before Clarice got rescued. And to show that she is in kind of more of the leader role, or the, you know, strategist kind of position, I knew she had to say something about what they were going to do next. Like, either they are going to fight these guys off, or they are going to run. I mean, like what are they going to do? Because obviously they are not in an advantageous position right now. They are kind of getting swarmed. So that's what was going to go there. I didn't know exactly what she was going to say, but I knew she was going to say something, and I think that's sometimes all you need to be able to draw, is just know, well, she's got to say something, so... And she's also still fighting off these rock spiders, so I can, you know, give her a close-up, have her thwacking a spider off of her shoulder, and continue from there, and not have to know every single detail about what's coming up next. I can still just, you know, go ahead in here and draw. I went ahead and looked up how many days are left from now until the end of the year, which is my deadline. And it came up to 120 days. And this is quite frightening because, as you know, my goal was to make 100 panels. And at the end of this video, I will have done 3. So that means I still have to do 97 more panels in 120 days, which is, you know, roughly 1 a day, if you know, spread it out evenly. And I know that during my work days, I don't always have time to work on my comic, and I also know that I'm going to be out of town for a week this month, and we also have a guest staying at our house for like a week, so I know I can't just, you know, shut myself up in my room and work on this when you have company. You know, that's rude. So I'm not going to have a full 120 days, so I'm just going to pretend that I only have about 1 day per panel left until the end of the year. So that means, yeah, I just have to keep it going. And that's a little bit frightening. I don't know if any of you are familiar with writing terms where there are plotters, the people that use outlines and they, you know, plan out everything that's going to happen in their novel. And then there's what they call the pantsers, or the pantsing. And that's short for, like, by the seat of your pants. Like, basically they improvise. Like, they just start writing chapter 1, and then they go chapter 2, chapter 3. And I found that really interesting because that same kind of difference in process also exists in animation. In animation, you can just start from frame 1, and, like, you know, if the character's walking, you know, you can have them standing first, and then you draw them lifting their foot, and then you draw them, you know, extending their leg, and then you draw them with the foot landing on the ground, and you just continue one after the other. And that's called straight ahead animation. But then there's also keyframe animation, which is usually used in feature animation, and that's when you have like what you'd call a plot point in a novel, like the poses that the character has to hit, and then you hand it off to someone else to fill in the in-between frames. So I was very familiar with the difference in these you know, work processes. And normally I want to be, I really want to be the plotter. I want to be the keyframe animator. I want to know where I'm going, you know, which poses I have to hit, which story points I have to hit, and then fill in as I go. That's even how I developed my story the first time around with the Post-it notes. I was hitting those major plot points first and then filling them in. And being thrown to the other side where now I have to be a pantser, or I have to be, you know, a straight ahead, or even maybe even slightly improv category, it's very uncomfortable for me, to be honest, because I want to know how this is going to go. I don't want to have to make it up as I go. But when I think back to when I taught Aikido, which is a nonviolent martial art, and also even at my art classes right now that I teach, even though I took a lot of care in preparing my lesson plans for both Aikido and art class, when I got there, I found out very quickly that I had to be able to improvise and I had to be able to adapt whatever I had planned, because there was always something unexpected that happened. And it's usually around the level of skill that the students have. Like if I plan to do a lesson on, like, I don't know, advanced color theory, and then I have somebody brand new come in who has never drawn a day in their life, they don't even know what color theory is. Obviously I can't just stick to my plan and say, well, we're going to do advanced color theory. I have to find a way to not exclude those beginning students, and that often happened in Aikido as well. And it was so frustrating for a time, because I'd be working with the same, core group of students. So we'd get, to more advanced moves. And right when I thought, oh yeah, today I'm going to, introduce this new move, or, whatever it was, I'd get somebody who was just absolutely first time on the Aikido mat and had to learn the very basics. And it was just like, okay, so I have to, think on my feet and adapt the lesson to that. So really, this comic should be the same way. Even though I had a plan, and that plan fell apart, okay, I think I should be able to, or I should practice with this comic just being okay with making decisions based on what I have on the previous page. Because really that's all a comic is, that's all sequential art is, right? Is that you see a picture and you get dialogue and you get a piece of the story and what happens next. So that's what I'm kind of taking away from this week's headaches and stress. And like, I've eaten so many cookies just trying to cope with like how badly things are going, right? Like I'm a stress eater big time. So, hopefully I won't need to eat any more cookies, starting next week. And, I'm also actually kind of stoked that this deadline is going to make me draw every day, because now it's going to finally be a priority in my life that I get to draw for just me, for just this webcomic, for like an hour a day maybe. Because I think doing this page maybe took 2 hours. I'm going to say that it's maybe an hour per panel. And I think I could find the time to do, an hour of drawing a day. Even if I had to wake up an hour earlier, I think I could do that. And just having, the motivation to do that and to get it done is something that I've been missing for a long time. So I'm pretty happy about that, actually, that I only have 120 days left to finish this, because it means it's going to get finished. One thing I am having trouble with, that I just noticed in this video, is the speech balloons. They take a lot of time, actually, and I may need to find either just some way to do it faster, or maybe take notes on how I make them, because one big drawback when you're doing digital art, at least for me, is that I will, do a page like I did the first page, and then when I come to the next page, I need to make it consistent with the first page, but I don't even know what I did. Like, which tool did I use, and, what was the brush size? And especially there's one brush that I use for the speech balloons that has kind of a rough edge. It's the one that I'm using right now, actually. But that rough edge changes shape depending on how big the brush is. So it'll have really raggedy edges if it's, like at, 40 pixels, but it'll be smooth looking if it's at 4 pixels. So then I have to figure out, well, how big was this brush to get that level of kind of roughness? You know, what did I even do? So I'm going to have to take a couple of notes on how I do things. I wasn't even sure if I had done the shadows in Fire Alpaca or did I do it in Adobe Photoshop. I suppose I could have looked back at my videos. That might have been helpful, now that I think about it. And see, you know, just what I did and how I did it. Aside from making a multiply layer and adding a gradient to that multiply layer, I couldn't really remember how I did the shadows, like which brush I used and just things like that. So I had to wing it. You know, you had to just keep going, because again, I don't think it's going to make or break this comic if someone notices that, oh, you know, she used a different brush here. I'm trying to let those things, you know, go to the wayside and just look at the big picture of getting this story told. I almost wanted to, this was crazy, I almost wanted to put in a rival group that would be on the same mission as my characters, but, you know, then I'd have like some clear bad guys to defeat. But I quickly, you know, said, no, we can't do that. We can't make more characters when you don't even know these characters. But that's a problem I think a lot of artists have, is that they just have so many ideas, and they want to do this and this and this. I have a student right now in one of my classes. She's great at coming up with new characters, but the problem is she's great at coming up with new characters. So every single class, she's got a new character that she's working on, and I can see in her what happens to me when I continually abandon whatever idea I'm working on and I start with something else. And I try to encourage her as much as I can, you know, oh, but what about that character you were working on last week? You know, what's going on with her? And try to, you know, kind of urge her to not give up so easily every time, you know, she makes a character, to just move on to the next one. I mean, even if you're a character designer, I think you have to stick with the character long enough to draw, you know, the front, back, side views, things like that. And so far she keeps drawing them in one or two poses and then just moves on. And I see the problem there, and I see that problem in myself too, when I want to just give up on the thing that's giving me trouble, or I'm just, you know, distracted by shiny objects. It's just like, oh, but what about this? Especially when I watch, you know, so many Korean dramas with my mom, and I'm always looking at stories and dissecting them and thinking about how I would do them better, you know. So don't let that happen to you. So there's that page as it is finished right now. I mean, not perfectly finished, but it's about as finished as it's gonna get. And the next upload, or the next video I should say, should be pretty full, since I'm going to have to do at least 5 panels to stay on track. Or no, wait, maybe 7 panels, huh? Because one every day. Gosh, oh dear. Okay, that's frightening. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.